Hey, this is Kent with SIP.us. I'm going to talk to you about an Avaya IP Office system today. This is an Avaya Office 500 version 2 running the firmware blend of 9.1. And I'm in the LAN tab right now under the system itself because that's where we're going to start. So this system is connected to my LAN. It has two ports. It has a LAN port and a WAN port. Now, when you're in this menu, it's a little confusing because LAN 1 is the port marked LAN on the back of your system. LAN 2 is the port marked WAN on the back of your system. And I do not have anything plugged into my WAN port. That would also be LAN 2. There's nothing plugged into that port. Everything is plugged into LAN on my IP office, which is LAN 1. Everything is running through my LAN, which is the 10.1.10 subnet, and it's going out my router/firewall to my modem. And you can see I've got my IP address configured on here. I gave it a static IP of 10.1.10.40. Put in my subnet mask. This is the default for primary transport IP. Do not hit enable NAT unless you are expecting traffic to be coming from LAN 1 and going out LAN 2. That's not how this is set up, so we don't have that enabled. You probably do not need it enabled. Once those look right, you can go to the network topology. I put in the stun.sip.us stun server IP, which you have there, and the default stun port was left there. This was set to unknown, the firewall type, and it discovers it for you. I'm refreshing my IP every 60 seconds, and you can see it pulled my IP. Even if it was dynamic, it would pull this. I have it set to run stun on startup, and that's important because we want, as soon as this machine boots up, we want it to figure out what its IP is and then translate that. DNS, I'm just running Google's DNS servers on this machine here. Once you have the networking going, you're not done with networking. We're going to go all the way down to the IP route field. You need to enter a route for the internet if you don't have one already. So this this specific route here is basically saying my internet is located through 10.1.10.1, which is my gateway, and go out LAN 1. This is the entry you need with your gateway here and tell it to go out LAN 1. At that point, your machine has internet access and can reach SIP.us. Without that, you can't do it. So you need to create a line. So you would go to, right click on line, hit new, and go to SIP line. I did that. It automatically created line 17. And line 17 is what we're editing. You'll be dropped off in this page. And in here, you need to put in the ITSP domain name, which is gw1.sip.us. The URI type is SIP, and the location is cloud. Everything else should be default, except you may have to check in service and check OOS, which I believe is what does the options pings. It sends options pings to see if you can still reach our gateway. And if you can't, then it marks this line as out of service, and so you won't be able to dial out of it. So it's a nice way of monitoring whether or not you're connected to gw1.sip.us. In the transport for the ITSP proxy address, you need to put the actual IP address for gw1.sip.us, which you can copy this or just do an NS lookup for gw1.sip.us, and that should be fine. Layer 4, we're using UDP and sending out on 5060. We're listening for return traffic on 5060, but we don't care where it comes from. And the calls are going to route via the registrar. In your SIP URI tab, you won't have any entry to start with, and you can't really make any yet. You got to go to SIP credentials first, and you would go in here. You can see I've already entered my credentials, but you could add credentials, and I put in my trunk number as the username, authentication name, and contact. Then I have a password on that trunk, and I put that in, and I tell it to expire every 60 minutes and that registration is required. And once you have that set, you can hit cancel on that. Then you can go to the SIP URI, and you can edit your SIP URI or add one. And we're going to have internal data for everything, none for PAI, and the registration is the credential that we put in. You won't get this until you've created your SIP credentials, so that's why it's important. And the incoming group and outgoing group should be the same as the line you're creating. Once you've got that squared away, you can see I'm using just G711 ULAW and G729. Nothing in T38 FACS. We talked about that. Under SIP Advanced, you're going to use by source IP address for association, and the call routing is going to go based on the request URI. Nothing under engineering. At that point, you're done with the line. You need to look at your user real quick. Yeah, we didn't make any changes. Well, I didn't make any changes, so I don't need to save them. I'm using extension 201, which has the associated user 201 for testing on this system. And if I go all the way over to SIP, you need to set a number in the SIP name and contact fields, as this is where your caller ID is pulled from, so that people see the caller ID. So I set this number in here, and people will see my caller ID. That's really all you have to do with the user. You need to create a short code, or you could edit one that exists, I suppose. So I created a short code called 6N, semicolon, which is you dial 6 and then any number of digits, and then it waits for completion. I believe that's 4 seconds by default is what the semicolon means. Then it's going to dial the number, which is N, whatever you dialed, minus the 6. And it's going to add on gw1.sip.us, which is important because we need that when it gets to sip.us. Then I associated it with line group 51, which I created down here in an ARS entry. Ta-da! So I go to here, and what I did is I created 2 entries in here for our uses. And this one is for 10-digit dialing. So most people in America are used to dialing the area code and number. They aren't used to dialing a 1 first, but SIP.US needs 11 digits. We have to receive a 1 in front of the number. So what I've done is I've put in 10 X's at gw1.sip.us because somebody's going to dial 6 and then area code and number, and that is going to hit my 6N shortcode, and it's going to send it to this entry, and it's going to send it with 10 digits, which is the 10 X's, at gw1.sip.us. Then when it sends it to us, it's going to add a 1. That's the 1 in front of the N. The N is all this stuff over here, and it's just going to add a 1 on the front so that sip.us gets 11 digits, which is what we need. Now I've got another entry that's going to take whatever else is thrown at us from that same shortcode. So if they dial 933 to test 911 services, it would pick that up. If they dialed 1, the area code and number, it would pick that up and just pass that on. So it's kind of a fail-safe just in case we get somebody that dials 11 digits, or we need a different number of digits that would be valid with sip.us. Once you have that set up, it's probably time to do your inbound routing. And you can see I put an incoming number in here. And all I did was I took my DID that I have from sip.us. I stuck a plus in front of it. Most carriers or most vendors that sip.us purchases numbers from add a plus in on their equipment when they deliver it to us. So you probably have to put this plus in. If this is not working, your inbound call is showing like a 404 not found or something like that, feel free to try taking this plus out and just doing the 11 digits. We do have that. Every once in a while we get a carrier that delivers like that. The other thing that you can do is set your destination, and you should do this, at least the primary. You can see I got extension 201 and my fallback is 203. I have both of those phones connected. At this point, my system is working. And if we were able to pull up the monitor here, you would see that the monitor, you see stuff flying by. Here's a SIP options ping, and it did reach us. And you can see here's a SIP options ping response of 200 OK. came back, and you can kind of see the traffic flow back and forth in the monitor. The monitor is your friend. If you get into trouble, you know, or something's not working, look to the monitor first. The monitor will usually point you in the right direction. Even if you don't understand everything that's going on in the monitor, it should point you to, you know, is something wrong with my ARS? Is something wrong with my shortcode? Am I not getting internet connectivity? You know, is SIP.us sending me back a forbidden message or something like that because maybe my password is wrong? It will kind of point you in the right direction, so it's invaluable as far as troubleshooting your system. But you can see I have a working system, and all I had to do then, once I was done configuring, was save it, and it did an immediate update and rebooted my system, and about 5 minutes later, I was talking on my IP office.